been to Minnesota in probably 20 years. Bring gas.
Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Boy, I feel like every other week our State of the Wolves is, oh, here we go. Look at all the haters. What do you have to say now? And then the next week, which is what today's vibe is going to be, is everything's broken. Everyone's depressed. So we'll get into our State of the Wolves here. We got the sports dad, Judd. We got Dex. We got myself, Phil Mackey here. And a couple shout-outs. So Bricksworth, which is just a couple blocks away from Target Center, is a great place to bring your group of friends or family before home games or after home games, or for away games even. They got the games on TV. They got some of the best dry rub wings, really unique seasonings on those dry rub wings. They have Detroit-style pizza, the signature Nas Reed Hazy IPA, and it's super close to Target Center with even cheaper parking options. So it could just be a win across multiple different categories. Even in the once we get to like the non-0 degree temperatures, the sprawling patio, beautiful event space, and they also brew their own craft beer inside the OG Burnsville location. But Bricksworth, really great spot, one of my favorite places downtown Minneapolis. And then Federated Insurance, which has been around for over 100 years, helping business owners maximize their businesses through risk management. They're all about focusing on safety, preventing claims, and risk management so you can stay focused on growing your business. Federatedinsurance.com to find a full list of industries that they specialize in. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. So Dex will take us to the overview, and then we'll get to the various categories here. It's not looking too good.
It is funny that, from what Phil said off the top, that this is basically every other week is great and every other week is down the dumps. That's been the case for like the last 7 episodes of State of the Wolves so far. All right, so currently Wolves are exactly 500. They're 17-17 on the season. They are 10th in the Western Conference. They are 2.5 games back of the top 6 to get out of that play-in. They're 21st in offensive rating. They're 8th in defensive rating. They had a great run there where they shot back up, I believe, into the top 5, and now they've kind of come back to earth a little bit. They're still 8th, which is good, but also far off from the number 1 defensive rating, which they had a season ago. According to ESPN.com, the Wolves have a 38.1% chance to make the playoffs. On Basketball Reference, still more bullish. They're at 59%. So Basketball Reference formula still likes the Wolves as a playoff team, maybe more than ESPN does. I will say both them are almost in lockstep of winning the Larry O'Brien Trophy. ESPN gives them 0.1, Basketball Reference 0.2% chance, respectively, on both of those.
So you're telling us there's a chance.
Exactly. So got that going for them if you're looking at the Wolves. And with the Wolves being 10th in the Western Conference, they would play the Warriors in a play-in situation if the playoffs started today.
Oh.
So vibe check. Here we are, again, on the downward slide of the roller coaster. Judd, you want to give us a vibe check here to lead us off?
Yeah, absolutely. Wolves' vibes continue to be, or are back to being, rudderless. This team... So, in their last 9 games, they've won, to go back to the start of the last 9-game stretch, they won 3 consecutive games. Or, I'm sorry, they lost them. Then they won 3 consecutive. And now they are... again, in a slump of 3 consecutive defeats. Ant gets upset after the last home game that he can't get off shots, that everyone's double teaming him. Then he comes back on Saturday against the Pistons and pours in 53, and the rest of the starters score 14, and we've talked about this as well. And the Wolves really never had a chance to win a game that they lost by 14 points. They are rudderless. They cannot... Their identity comes and goes and sways, and sometimes Ant can't get off shots, and then sometimes he'll score 53. And it's funny because the joylessness of this Timberwolves team starts with the Timberwolves. Like this is not a team that we're frustrated by, but they seem to be really giving it their all, and they are all for one and one for all. They are a rudderless team right now. And that just continues. And the problem is we are now into January. So, this is your identity right now.
Who was the second leading scorer in that? Do you have the box score? That Pistons box score?
I do not.
I can pull it up.
I don't think anyone else scored double digits. It was like Ant scored 53.
It was ridiculous.
Julius got 17.
Okay.
That was the only other one. Yeah.
Okay.
But he was a minus 20.
Yeah. That felt like a lashing out statement game for Ant, which is I am a scorer. I'm sick of just making the right play, quote unquote,
Right.
and having
Right.
somebody else throw up a brick or whatever it may be. And I'm just gonna go show the world that I haven't deteriorated. I can still flex on it and drop 53 points in a blowout loss, of course. So yeah, I would say Wolves vibes are Bill Murray in Groundhog Day. Mm-hmm. The Wolves PR account on Twitter and the Timberwolves main account before every single game tweets out the starting lineup. Like the PR account's very official. Like, here are the Wolves starting five, and then the at Timberwolves account is like, here's the five we're rolling with. Like a little bit more. The replies and the quote tweets are epic at this point. It's just bang it, like memes of banging your head against the same wall. Here's the five we're rolling with tonight. It's three dudes who can't get a bucket at all whatsoever, and then Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle trying to do everything. And that starting five, no, they weren't. I'm trying to think of the Pistons game. I think they actually weren't terrible, or they were down by like maybe 3 or 5 points. But more often than not, they are digging a hole that the second unit has to overcome. And then we get mad at the second, like the Detroit game, we get mad at the second unit if they don't overcome it. Like, what's wrong with the second unit tonight? Sorry, we can't bail you out every time you're down by 12 points with 3 minutes to go in the first quarter, guys. And I believe at last check, that starting five was like -1 points per 100 possessions. So we're now, 35 games into the season, and you have 35 games of evidence that starting five at best is a break even against the league. And it's the lineup that you're putting out for by far the most minutes. So Judd, you asked me last week, okay, well, let's not just point out problems, let's find solutions. What would your starting lineup be? Here's what my starting lineup would be. I've thought about this for the last few days.
Okay.
I'm glad.
You can't just keep waking up to, now put your little hand in mine. Bill Murray, same hotel room, Puxatawny Phil. You have to do something to get off to better starts. Like, get out to an 18-point lead once in a while and then worry about not blowing it, as opposed to, how do we dig out from the 12-point deficit? So I would start Anthony Edwards, Dante DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, so I go a little smaller.
Wow.
Rudy Gobert, and Naz Reid. So I would have 4 3-point shooters around Rudy Gobert. And by the way, Anthony Edwards, Dante DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander, those guys aren't as big or as lanky or maybe as versatile of who they can defend as Jaden McDaniels, but they're very switchable. They're all bulldogs when they want to be. And those 5 guys together this season are 17 points better per 100 possessions than the current starting 5. So I would just start there. We've got some evidence of who works together, who doesn't.
Right.
You know that those guys, and maybe some of that is inflated by those guys playing against combinations of other teams' benches. But let's say instead of 17 points better, maybe it's 10 points better per 100 possessions. Unleash a new starting 5 that gives you a better chance to build some cushion once in a while. And then instead of worrying about how to overcome the deficit every single night, you're worried about how not to blow a lead, which I'd rather take on that problem. And that would mean that Mike Conley, Julius Randle, and Jaden McDaniels are coming off the bench with like Josh Minott. I would get Dillingham involved. And you can mix and match. Okay, let's keep Anthony Edwards with a couple of these guys. And then it becomes kind of a chess match of how do you integrate starters with bench guys. But I would just start with a starting 5 that you know isn't going to get you buried 3 out of every 4 games and go from there.
And yet Finch, I guess, doubled down on Saturday again, because Chris Hine of the Star Tribune keeps asking him, "Hey, are you considering any changes?" And he doubled down. And I didn't see his quotes, but I read them, and it almost sounded like defensive of, no, this is what,
You guys ask me this every single game, and if I thought I would have made that change if I thought that it was an easy fix.
Chapter and verse about how there are some residual effects if he makes changes in the starting lineup with other players. There's some they're like clearly
Who cares?
But yeah, at this point in time, and again, this is now your identity. Like you are 34 games in?
Yeah, why can't you walk into everyone knows this isn't working. Like you're still in position for a play-in, so it's not like an abject disaster that you can't overcome. And also long-term, this was never the final move. The cat trade was never, the end game was not this. Like there was going to be another move of some kind. And I know people have just been smoking me on Twitter. When are you gonna bow down and apologize?
You're going to go to New York, go to the Garden, sit courtside with Spike, and apologize.
Where were all you people, by the way? All these cat crusaders when that dude shot 27% in the first 3 games of the Western Conference Finals and single-handedly shipwrecked your chances to get to the NBA Finals, right? Like, so okay. Obviously, right now it looks bad. I still stand by trading him was the right decision. Maybe it winds up being a train wreck. We can all confront that, and I can grovel and beg for people's forgiveness this summer. But to sit there, if you're Chris Finch, and say, well, but if we change the starting lineup, it might upset this thing over here. Dude, it's not working. So you should be able to walk into that room, and those guys can feel it's not working. Anthony Edwards, he didn't even speak to the media after the 53 points because he's sick of all this, right?
How about that? You score 53 and you Cat would have been like, yeah, we lost, but did you see my 53?
Well, at this point, Ant's just trying to save himself $150,000 from swearing in front of cameras.
Yeah, it's true.
But can't you walk into that room if you're a head coach with full credibility of saying, listen, I am the best coach I'm the first or second best coach in franchise history. I helped guide this team to the Western Conference Finals last year.
Yeah.
This isn't working. We're going to put egos aside, and we're going to make some changes. And if a couple of you starters are offended by the fact that you're going to come off the bench now, sorry. The Phoenix Suns just did it. The Phoenix Suns just announced that Bradley Beal's going to come off the bench now because it's not working.
Well, that's what I was going to say, though. Is there are there factors here we don't know about? Like it's very weird. It seems weird. It's almost like Finch is doubling down, and the question is why, and he won't tell us. Like it just seems very. I mean, Jaden McDaniels, God bless him, should not be starting.
And I think part of it is, well, we just committed $25 million a year.
Right.
He's a little bit of a fragile personality in some ways. You traded Cat
and got Julius. Does he have to start because of that? Like that's my question is what are the real reasons why something that clearly is not clicking? And by the way, I think might not click. Like I don't know how, if you go 17 more games and you said, okay, you know what? It also didn't work then. I wouldn't be shocked at all.
But you know what? The other thing too, in terms of like ego and what have you, when you're losing games that you're not supposed to and you're underperforming, the water level goes down for everyone. But if you make a tweak here and there, and all of a sudden, hey, Jaden, I know that like it'd be nice for you if you were starting ego-wise and playing 35 minutes. Until you become a more reliable offensive presence or until we find some lineup combinations that work better for and with you, you're going to play 24 minutes and you're going to come off the bench. Well, okay, then go be the 6th man of the year. But you can't just keep putting out a bad starting lineup because of feelings or politics or whatever it is behind the scenes. To not make a change at some point is crazy. So vibes check for me is the Wolves vibes are Bill Murray from Groundhog Day. Dex.
Yeah, the vibes for me are they need a spark. Like they need something, and whether that's shaking up a starting lineup, go for it. Like Jimmy Butler is once again burning it down in Miami. They're trying to figure out how to get the hell to move on from that.
Shocking.
But like the Wolves are pretty next close in line of the shrug emoji of what can we do to fix things. Like on paper, this is still too good of a team to be 500 at near the halfway point of the NBA regular season. So is that changing up your starting lineup, which is probably the easiest thing to do because it's internal and it doesn't involve completely getting rid of players, or is that getting ahead of the trade deadline, maybe you do flip Julius Randle. Maybe you do move on from some of these guys to get some type of new spark. I don't think it's a coaching change, at least not yet, but they need some type of spark. They're lacking a spark.
I do not want to change coaches. And this is coming from a guy who loves to fire coaches. I don't think Chris Finch is doing a good job, but I also don't think firing him would help much. Like, it might give you a instant little spark, but I think it would be detrimental to the future of the franchise to do so. Here's a question I've got coming off the quotes I saw Saturday from Detroit, though, okay? So the Mike Conley thing is being spun by Mike included now as, well, it's my job to help. So I'm trying to help, and I'm probably trying to help too much. I just think he's cooked. It feels like they're trying, because he's such a good guy, and I think the entire team loves Mike Conley. Yeah. But it feels like they're trying to spin this as, well, Mike's trying to help out too much, and Mike probably needs to focus on Mike. And it's like, if you watch him play, I don't think that's it at all. Like, if Mike focuses more on Mike and shoots more, I ain't so sure it's coming back.
Well, let's transition then, as this therapy session continues, into our least favorite current Wolves thing. And you brought up Mike Conley, so I'll just throw this out. It's Mike Conley for me. It sucks because he's been such a key part of this rise up, the D'Lo trade to get him, and his veteran presence, his leadership, his 3-point shooting, his savviness, his calmness has been so valuable.
Yes.
But do you guys care to guess, among qualified NBA players, how many current players have a worse field goal percentage than Mike Conley?
Cool.
Take a guess.
How many are? Do you have the sample? How many?
There's like 150 qualified NBA, like qualified like minutes.
He might be last.
Yeah, I gotta imagine he's like fifth to the bottom or something.
He's dead last.
Yeah.
Dead last.
Ordinarily, when Phil asks this, the person is last.
It's not so bad, actually. He's like 50th percentile.
Yeah.
And so, just to broaden that out, and by the way, I don't think he would be offended if you lessened his role. He seems like the type, like he's going to be probably a head coach at some point if he wants to be. He's, listen, we're not going to like take you completely out of this thing, but we have to shake some things up. And so, and they've already kind of reduced his minutes, but he can barely get shots off now, it feels like. And so to broaden this out to an Anthony Edwards conversation, he kind of freed himself in Detroit. He just went complete cyborg mode. He hit like 10 threes, and he just said, screw all of these shackles around me, all of these double teams. I'm just going to go full God mode here and show you why I am still the face of the NBA in the future, right? For one glimpse. But if you're wondering, what's wrong with Anthony Edwards? How has he regressed after the Olympic experience, going to the Western Conference Finals? Well, let me lay this out. So he averages playing 19 minutes a game alongside Mike Conley, who is last in the NBA in field goal percentage among qualified players. He plays an average of 26 minutes per game with Jaden McDaniels, who ranks in the 13th percentile among qualified players in offensive rating. And he plays 27 minutes a game alongside Rudy Gobert, who is probably the most limited offensive player in the league. And for years and years and years, his defense has been so high-end, rim protecting. Even like some of his perimeter defense, I think, goes underrated, under-talked about. But he's getting a little older. His defense maybe isn't even what it was last year. So anyways, but you're putting Anthony Edwards out there, 19 minutes a game with a 35% shooter, 26 minutes a game with Jaden McDaniels, who is super limited offensively right now, as a shooter especially, and 27 minutes a game with Rudy Gobert, who has a hard time catching passes. And oftentimes he's out there with all three of those guys at the same time. So what would it look like with Anthony Edwards? More space, more offensive players who could knock down shots, who he could unlock as a playmaker, etc.
Yes.
That's Anthony Edwards. Okay, some of it you got to be better in certain areas, and you got to figure out just how to solve some of these puzzles. But Mike Conley is a conduit to a lot of these starting lineup struggles, and a lot of Anthony Edwards' decline to this point.
And his age, like this should not be shocking. This is not some type of like judgment of Mike. Mike Conley's had a great career, right? For most guys who continue to play, this comes. So it's not like you're calling a Mike Conley in his prime who's just struggling in and benching him. So yes, I'm with you. I think he would get it. I think he's trying to justify his slumping by saying that I'm trying to do too much, but I think it's very simple. I think he's just at an age now where there was an inevitable cliff, and the problem is this Timberwolves team doesn't have time to see if it's not the cliff. Like, this is too good of a team with expectations to now say, well, let's push this thing out. 17 more games. Your identity now is a major problem. And the coach is going to have to make some changes here too. Like, that's the thing with Finch. I don't want him fired, but I sure as hell want him at some point here to drop what appears to be a loyalty and say, this isn't what's best for this team.
Yeah. And I don't know. I won't put words in your mouth. I am not saying Mike Conley is the sole reason why.
No.
That I am not saying there's a pie chart here, and we could do that episode maybe later this week if they got a couple important games, Clippers coming up tonight. But there's like 4 or 5 things, and you need to be creative as a coach here and just create something fresh. Okay. Either one of you guys, your current least favorite Wolves thing.
Go ahead, Max.
For me, and I know an injury is playing a big part of this, but there have been, I saw this on the Timberwolves Reddit page, there have been 35 other rookies this season in the NBA that have played more minutes than Rob Dillingham. And this was a guy that was traded for in the top 10 of the draft. Again, an injury is a problem. He can't play. I get that. Yep. But 35 other rookies. You traded up to go get Rob Dillingham. You are lacking a spark, an integral spark. It might be from right there, the guy you traded up to go get in Dillingham once he gets healthy. I just think the fact that they made that trade, and in Tim Conley we trust here, he's good at identifying these type of moves, and he traded up for him. He must really, really like him. But once he's healthy, I would like to see this guy get some minutes. That might be your spark there, to have 35, 36 other rookies in the NBA who are playing more minutes than Rob. I don't know. It seems unacceptable.
Also, they have a 24-year-old Terrence Shannon Jr. who he's only played 2 G League games because they've got him kind of stashed away on their NBA bench.
Yeah, he's a spark too.
And now they might come back and say, yeah, but he's, in terms of his position and where he would slot in as kind of a wing player. Yeah, the Wolves have a lot of those bodies, and Josh Minott is getting some minutes. But part of the reason why I bought into the Karl Anthony Towns trade was because, and even if you had to take a step back for a year, which they are, I was okay with it if it meant, you're going to lean into like the younger nucleus, which is now expanded with the 2 first-round picks you had. Josh Minott's going to get some minutes, and it's going to be like Anthony Edwards, Naz Reid's role is going to be highlighted, and Jaden McDaniels maybe takes a step, which he hasn't this year. But the fact that it's just like a steady barrage of 35 minutes of Julius Randle and Mike Conley unable to hit 65% of his shot attempts, and you're not even getting a look at some of these guys. When his ankle is ready, you got to run Rob Dillingham out there for the Josh Minott. We can get into that. That's one of my favorite things. But the Josh Minott minutes are working out really well. You might have to let them kind of figure it out for 2 or 3 games, or maybe even 10 games, because they don't have experience in the NBA. So, Judd, what is your current least favorite Wolves thing?
It's a chemistry thing, and it's the fact that the events of November 21st in Toronto still remain a problem. That was, of course, the day where Julius had the ball on the perimeter. Gobert was open, was on a smaller defender, and Gobert's like, give me the ball. And Julius is like, Number 1, this play is for me. And number 2, you are an offensive liability, which is true. But it doesn't feel like the chemistry, like they said all of the right things after that, right? We talked about it, but it always feels like it comes back to someone like Ant on Saturday making a point.
Yeah.
Or Gobert, who, in my opinion, defensively, part of the problem here is his engagement level is entirely based on his mood. So if he feels that the team is playing as a team, Rudy Gobert is defensively really damn good. But if you ever notice when it starts to wane, what happens is his defense declines. Between the Gobert pout, the Julius mean mug, the Conley smile because everything is going to be fine when you know
I
it's
love
not.
Conley, man.
Oh yeah. Well, he's the mom of the dysfunctional family, right? Who like smiles like, "Oh, that Mike Conley, his family must be perfect." And behind closed doors, it's a mess.
Her personal health is taking a toll.
Yep.
You know, she's.
But I mean, she always puts a smile on, and it's like, that Mrs. Conley, what a great lady she is. And it's like, personally, she cries herself to sleep. And then you got Jaden. I mean, and Jaden is like the teenage kid in his room, door locked, hates the family.
Listen to emo music. Very much 14-year-old
exactly.
Declan. Yeah.
This remains a problem. And I don't think that this team can achieve anything close to what we think it can unless this gets ironed out. And I don't know how, but I mean, I'm telling you, I think Gobert defensively, when he wants, is still absolutely fine. But like again on Saturday, things start to go wrong. He doesn't get the ball. He feels left out, and his defense suffers. There's just so many chemistry things that were highlighted by that game in Toronto, but I think still remain a problem.
Okay, we will end on a more positive note with our favorite current Wolves thing here. But you know what? Here's the good news. If the game is going poorly, you can always just walk out of Target Center and right across the street to Kieran's, huh? It's a good
Absolutely.
silver lining, Dex?
Yeah, I love Kieran. Kieran's a great spot, pregame, postgame, up for a game at Target Center. They're located on the corner there, 1st Ave and 6th Street, just right across from Target Center. It's your home for epic game day watch parties. They have exclusive game day specials as well. I'm going to a game at the end of the month against the Hawks. I will say you can probably catch me there pre and maybe even post game for that one as well. Kieran's Irish Pub, where every game feels like a win. Go check out Kieran's right across the street from the Target Center.
Can MSP Plumbing and Heating help the Wolves with anything, Judd? And anything at all?
Well, you know what? Absolutely. Absolutely. Great point. Target Center, old building, right? What if they walk in today and the heat does not work? There's no worse feeling in these cold days when the heat does not work. Well, guess what? Commitment is one of the most important words at MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air. That's because for over a century now, families have relied on MSP, a 100%, by the way, family-owned and operated business for all their plumbing, drains, heating, and cooling needs. Trust comes through delivering expert plumbing, heating, cooling, and drain solutions. And Commitment also means this. Right now, get $50 off any HVAC or plumbing repair for any type of repair. MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air wants to keep your home running smoothly at this time of year. So give them a call, 651-615-4292, or check out their website, callmsp.com. That's callmsp.com.
Okay, favorite current Wolves things. Just a couple quick things here for me. Josh Minott, super impactful in his 8 to 10, maybe 11 minutes that he's being given. He brings energy. He brings even like transition scoring. The way he's lanky and he's aggressive getting to the rim. He just brings an energy and an exuberance that a dead ass,
a joy. He plays with some joy.
Team, yes.
Yes, it sounds stupid, but it's true.
So it's fun to watch him. And then I will say, too, we should throw a mention out because this happened a few days ago. The Wolves they made a really interesting claim over the weekend. Point guard Tristan Newton from the Indiana Pacers. So he was UConn's point guard, back-to-back national championships, and was a second-round pick in the 2024 NBA draft. A big 6'5" point guard. And he was not a great shooter in college. There's some great YouTube. You can go and watch like his playmaking on YouTube. There's some great highlight videos. But even though he wasn't a great shooter in college, he was shooting 42% from 3 in 10 G League games to start this year. So, I mean, the fact that we already listed off like 4 young Wolves guys that can't get 5 minutes even in garbage time, it seems like he's probably not going to get on the court here. But
Yes.
but if you look at the stash of young guys they have behind Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Tristan Newton now, Rob Dillingham, Leonard Miller, Jalen Clark is starting to pick it up offensively in the G League. He was the defensive player of the year in college basketball 2 years ago, came off the Achilles injury. And Terrence Shannon Jr., they've got a stash of really interesting 24, 25-year-olds and younger, and Tristan Newton can be added to that mix. Something to watch there.
Do you think he plays?
I mean, not. I'm assuming he'll play for Iowa, but
Okay.
Rob Dillingham is in line, I would assume. Very different players, by the way. Dillingham is one of the smallest players in the league.
Yeah.
Is more of a score first. I think Tristan Newton, he's like 5 inches taller.
I wonder what his defense is like.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on him with Iowa. But anytime you 6'5" point guard is an interesting prototype. Playmaker, can grab some rebounds. So add him to the stash. All right, favorite current Wolves things. What about you guys?
That there's time. There's time left. There's time left to change things. The lineup, potential trades, which of course because of the fact that the Wolves are in the second apron, it's a little bit more difficult. But the fact that there's time left, you are now into January, so the clock is ticking here. Like it's not. Oh man, it's only November. Clock is ticking, but there is still time, and I don't think you have to make some enormous move. But Phil, to your point, you know what? How about you tweak the lineup? How about you tweak something? It just feels like everyone is, if this is possible, everyone is too comfortable and miserable at the same time.
Yeah, it does kind of, whether this is right or wrong, it does kind of feel like Chris Finch is afraid to have a difficult conversation with either Jaden McDaniels or Julius Randle. I don't think Conley is an issue. I think you could, if you wanted to move Conley to the bench, I don't think he would.
I think he loves Conley.
But he also seems to love Julius Randle from his connection back in New Orleans. Is it something where you just need to have a PJ Fleck style, a difficult conversation for breakfast, and say it's not even like your fault, dude, but we have to get some different combos out here, and we have to stop digging ourselves 10-point holes in the first 12 minutes? Or is it some other reason? Because on the outside looking in, it looks like politics and like a fear of a difficult conversation.
It doesn't look like this is, from the outside trying to look in, it doesn't feel like this is all Finch. Like it feels like something is stopping him too. Might be totally wrong, but it seems weird that a lifetime basketball guy who knows, lineup combinations, is obviously a very smart basketball guy, would stick with this without like budging.
Dex, your favorite current Wolves thing?
That we're playing basketball games. We're not having ridiculous days off. Even though the Wolves lost 3 straight, we're playing games.
Basketball.
So your favorite thing is that they play basketball games.
They're playing games. There's no ridiculous amount of off days with the play-in tournament or the holidays.
Wait till the playoffs.
That's fine. I
don't know if that's a good thing with the way this team's playing right now.
Yes.
I could maybe use 5 or 6 days away from this team right now.
Dig yourself out of this. I'm totally fine with it. No, I love the fact there's no more of these random 2 or 3 or 4 days off. They don't have more than 2 days off until January 23rd. They are playing every other day until then.
Oh, good. So they're going to be tired, depressed, and ineffective by the end of this stretch. That's good.
You are going to be swimming in it, and I
Seasonal
want you to
blues.
swim in it.
Rudy, what's wrong? The weather's got me down.
Stat of the week here to wrap the State of the Wolves from our guy Jake Painting, Howls and Growls on Twitter. The Timberwolves have a 127.9 offensive net rating when Anthony Edwards is on the floor without Gobert and McDaniels. The league leading offense, which is Cleveland, has an offensive net rating 4 points worse than that. And as he points out, that obviously, like with sample size, they're probably not like sitting on the best offense in the NBA, and unbeknownst to them. But that's really telling how much Gobert and McDaniels on the court with Edwards is hampering the overall offense and hampering Edwards. And if you were getting it all back on the defensive end, I think you'd take it. You'd say, well, it's unfortunate we're kind of ugly and inconsistent on offense, but man, the other team can't score on us, so we're just going to have to grind these out with these lineups. I don't know that you're getting enough on the defensive side to justify how anemic the offense is. So putting Anthony Edwards out there without Gobert and McDaniels, it's worth experimenting how you can do more of that. Nice little stat there from Jake Painting.
I also think that shows that there's probably a fracture in the team itself in embracing the identities, right? Like Gobert's desire for identity is very, very clear, and that's fine because he's really good at defense. Yeah. Ant's like, I'm being doubled constantly. Oh, screw it. I'm just going to go to Detroit and score 50 points. It feels like there's a fracture in how players feel that the team should play. And I'm sure Julius has a much different idea. It's very clear than Gobert and perhaps a little bit than Ant.
Yeah. It is because they've defense is how they essentially got to the Western Conference Finals in a lot of ways, but it might be that you have to evolve and tweak from there. And by the way, that same stat, the defensive net rating is the same across the board. So it might just be getting to the point where the offensive deficiencies of Gobert and McDaniels are not worth the defense that they are perceived to be bringing to the table.
So the Gobert deficiencies, though, are not surprising. Like it's McDaniels who's the biggest problem there, right? If Jaden was hitting his threes, if Jaden could hit his shots, like Gobert's deficiencies are not on the offensive side. Are not like some type of shocking, oh my God, he was so great.
But what's kind of gone away is Cat and Gobert had a really good chemistry the second year. Mm-hmm. And they were finding ways, the whole team was finding more ways to get Gobert engaged with alley-oops.
And Conley was doing a great job too because he was playing so well.
Yeah, and a lot of that seems to have eroded.
Yeah.
And then, Jaden McDaniels has become just a really bad three-point shooter the last couple of years. One of the worst in terms of guys who shoot 4 times a game.
He was Declan's guy, man. That's all I know.
Yep. So there's your State of the Wolves on this Monday here. Flagrant Howls.
Sorry about that. Couldn't be better.
Little therapy session. But at least you get to watch the Timberwolves a lot. And Declan, you'll be glued to Wolves Clippers tonight here. This is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Let them play.